Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. The rumour mill is turning, social media is melting down, but we're just here waiting to see what those new anniversary kits are going to look like. But let's get into those headlines of the week. So screenshots are circulating of a job going at a Northwest Football Club CEO opportunity. Obviously, according to it, they need to have a low ego and a high work ethic. That is a must, apparently. Travis is linked to Wrexham, causing a social media storm amongst fans. And Blackburn are linked to a pacey left-sided Belgian, which gets everyone turning to YouTube and Google to find out about him. But Ohashi also got his 70 minutes for Japan, as his season just keeps on going and going and going without a break. I think it's been about 5 years now since he had a break. But yeah, I feel sorry for the lads. But Mark, you had a good week. That podcast studio is looking pretty sexy behind you.
It's pretty much done now, pal. I was absolutely boxed in the back end of a room before, and I thought, do you know what? Mike deserves more than this. Look at the effort he's gone to. I was getting criticism for not even putting photos in a frame. So I thought, right, I had half term. Oh, there I was. I am going to put some effort in. So yeah, we're all done. I've got the 442 awards that I featured in case you didn't know. None and Ever book. I've got Sheeran Sutton here. 94-95 ball. A ball from when I was mascot in 93. Dolan shirts up there. We've got a nice neon sign. We are cooking on gas, Mike. But I have been also having a little look at our channel. Now, this is exciting. The first member of the Blackburn End channel is Al Capone. I don't think it's the real one, but it is Al Capone. Massive thanks to him. But do you know what I have been doing? And I want everyone in a minute to follow a very simple instruction. We have got, the numbers are amazing at the minute, but we have got over half of the people are still not subscribed. And that makes a massive difference because it pops up in people's feeds who watch similar stuff. So if you're someone who watches, I don't know, The Overlap, The Rest is Football, and you watch Blackburn End Podcast, it will pop up and suggest it to the others. So then we can either annoy people who don't want to watch us, like the Dingles, or the people who watch similar rubbish to you will find us much easier. So do it now. Just pause what we're doing. Like, subscribe, job done, much appreciated. And actually, Mike, we might have a little something for those very loyal subscribers shortly, might we?
Exactly, yeah. So we've had a little bit of a think of how we can reward everyone because, like we've said, we love doing this. We'd do it if we had no one listening, to be honest, and we just appreciate everyone listening, commenting down below, sharing, telling their mates as well. It's all brilliant, and we want to reward. So we are going to be running a competition pretty shortly. We need to wait a little bit before we announce it, so it's a little bit of a teaser, but we are going to be running quite a nice little competition, and it's going to be a good prize as well. So we're quite excited about that, aren't we?
Yeah, I think if people mainly follow us on X or Blue Sky, certainly be on there. We'll try and get it on all socials and on here, but if you're following us on there, you'll definitely hear about it. You might get sick of hearing about it, but you will hear about it. Yes.
That's what we're hoping for. But one thing we are hearing about is these transfer rumours. Now, the big one is Captain Fantastic Lewis Travis. Now, it's crazy to think that 12 months ago and not long before that, we were thinking about how we was quite happy to see him leave. We was talking about how much would he be worth. I mean, we was even talking about like £500,000 bids would take him and things like that. He was completely out of favour. But then come across this year and he's one of our most important, some people are arguing the most important player that we've got. Rumours are Wrexham are in for him. And social media's gone into meltdown. We put a tweet out to say, look, we're not going to add to the rumours because there's no facts. There's nothing at the moment. It's all rumour. Now, we need to talk about it, and that's what we're here for. So I don't know where all these rumours first came from, but now they're talking about multiple teams in for him. There's normally no smoke without fire. So what do you think's going on?
My initial thought when I saw it was absolutely no way. Lewis Travis, Blackburn Rovers, come on. This is Wrexham we're talking about. However, when you look into it from trying to take a step back from being a Rovers fan, he's an established championship midfielder. We've not really had a sniff of the playoffs. He's got a year left on his contract. And then actually, when you look at Ismail type of football, you go back to Thomas and he wasn't getting a game then. Now, we talked about maybe he's going to move to a 3 in midfield. But I would suggest things like this usually crop up when an agent is trying to engineer something or just getting some expressions of interest. And any agent worth their salt, if your client is captain of a football club, we were led to believe is the highest earner, and there's nothing concrete about a new deal, would you not be exploring what else is out there? Or even if they are slightly talking about a new deal, well, let's just see what the market value is for my client. I don't think you're doing your job if not, and that's where it will be coming from. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing that you expect when a player that's had a decent season, I say decent season, good season for us, but from a championship level, it's a decent season. He's going to be available on a free in a year's time, which means that someone could snap him up. It is the kind of thing you start to hear. I think the frustrating thing is why it's taken so long to even tie him down, and why we're now having to have these tactics in place, but from agents, because you'd like to think that your club captain is going to get sorted. My thoughts are that potentially he's not part of the plans. They've talked about rebuild. There's a lot of people leaving the club at the moment, and maybe the rebuild goes that little bit deeper. It's all a theory. I don't know which side I'm leaning on. Is this a typical Blackburn not doing their job properly, or is it the fact that we're just happy to see him go? I wouldn't be surprised if it's true, and I wouldn't be surprised if the club are going to entertain the offers, because what's he going to be worth? Maybe 2 million. He's got a year left. He hasn't had a fantastic body of work. 1-2 million. I mean, what? Before I carry on, what kind of value do you think he's worth?
I think ultimately they're worth what it would take to replace them. And what we know is we don't reinvest all of that money. So to replace him, what would we need to get in? I'm not saying this is the figure you're going to get, but we tend to reinvest about 10% of the income. So we're talking 10 million if we're going to spend one. Great maths from me there. But I think you'd be very disappointed if your captain at a peak age, which is generally the age of players that we can't go and get because they're too expensive. Well, then he's got to be too expensive, hasn't he, for us to buy? I think I'd be disappointed if it was. I know there's only a year left, but I think you'd be saying 5 million is your captain. But that depends how much he's worth to the football men, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I say 1 to 2 million, it's not that I think he's worth that. It's the kind of thing that I think Venky's and the club would sell him for. I mean, I've had a quick look on Transfer Market, which is normally pretty spot on with how they value, and they're valuing him around the 3 million mark right now. I think if you take into the fact that it doesn't seem like there's much of a contract on offer, because I think if there was, it would have been signed. I think if someone's going to come in for him, I wouldn't be surprised if the club accepted like a 2 million if that was happening. I mean, I don't know. It's all speculation. I'm just going off the fact that we've sold some players that seem to be of value, like Kosmodics, for 8 million. Well, I think we was all disappointed with that value. You look at Wharton, he's gone for 20 with some great add-ons, to be fair, but it's not the value we wanted. Ash Phillips didn't go for much. Now, that was in his contract, but they allowed that to go into his contract. He didn't go for as much as what we wanted. So there seems to be this constant theme that whatever we think a player is valued at, they're not going to go for that. So when I say it's around the 2 million mark, that's the Blackburn value, not the actual market value. So I think you're right. I don't want to see him go, which is a complete turnaround, from my opinion, from last year. But you can't change, when you're talking rebuilds, you can't change your squad too much. You need to have some sort of stability. And for me, he was one of the leaders, and you can't get rid of the leaders. I think if he goes, I think you're going to upset some of the players. But we'll wait and see on it. The question is what kind of player are the likes of Wrexham going to get? And they're going to get someone who works hard. He's willing to put his body on the line. He's willing to be a leader on and off the pitch. Yes, he is a shithouse, and he likes to play, use the dark arts. But he's the kind of player we need right now. Yeah, it's a situation we shouldn't be in, isn't it?
100%. We'd said this 12 months ago. There's no way that your cornerstone. I know he wasn't at that point, but if Eustace came back in it straight as captain for Eustace, the key cogs in your team at good ages, I started to understand it as they get a bit older that you let them have a year when they get over 32. And kind of understand that business model. But the likes of Dolan, the likes of Travis, even Hyam to some extent, he's playing every minute of every game. If they're key parts of your squad, they shouldn't be running into the last 2 years of their deal. And if they are, then you sell them. We need to get back to that model and fast for me.
Yeah. I mean, he's played 38 times this year. He's got a couple of goals and an assist. He's got 11 yellow cards, which is a very Travis thing. But he was so important for us this year. And like I said, when it comes to financial value, I don't think we would get enough for him to replace him because he's come through the club system. He is someone that he knows the club, but that kind of is feeding into why I think it could be true that the club might not want him because they might want a complete rebuild. And if he's making noises in the background saying this isn't right, I'm not happy about this. We've got rid of the players. What was her position? The lady that left the club, players rep.
Pretty much player liaison, and manager PA as well.
Yeah, player liaison. That's the word I was looking for. So they've got rid of player liaison. You can tell he's going to have kicked up a stink about that. Apparently, he kicked up a stink about other things that was going on in the background. The club might just see him as someone that they don't want around anymore. So at the end of the day, I'm playing devil's advocate. I don't know. Yeah. These are all rumours. I think there's, like you said, there's an element of the agent just trying to drum up market interest. But I could see the club maybe looking to move on from him because he's not had a great body of work for us over his career. He's been solid and he's had some great moments and he's played a great role for us. But one good season doesn't make up for everything. I say make up, but that's probably the one thing. But you know what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I think he's. I think it'd be idiotic to get rid of him after last year. I thought he was absolutely vital, particularly in the real difficult moments. I thought the West Brom game, he led us through that. But he's a big character on and off the pitch. The rumours are that he stood up to Thomas and sticking up for the younger players, and next minute he's out the door. He was obviously close to Steve Waggett in the sense of used to speak to him a lot about the way things were for the players, whether it was the canteen or the facilities or whether it was travelling. He's got a lot to say, but that's his role as captain. So what we are seeing, which will lead us on to the CEO advert, but what we are seeing is that a common thread here of people of influence, people who are willing to stand up for what they believe in, appear to be disappearing out the door. So maybe
that's the worry, isn't it?
Yeah, we did talk though, didn't we, last week about obviously we were saying about Travis and Tronstad being cornerstone of our team and the performances being unbelievable, really, and particularly as a duo, I think they complement each other. I think their strengths and weaknesses kind of aligned to complement them. But we did talk about actually we don't get enough goals from them. We don't get enough creativity from them. Now, you're not going to have everything from a championship midfielder. That's why they're in the championship with us. But I think the way I would phrase it is if I was a Wrexham fan and I signed Lewis Travis, an experienced Championship captain, for 2 or 3 million, that is an excellent piece of business. Excellent piece. And I just think it'd be ridiculous of us to do that. But I can absolutely see it at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's disappointing. We don't want it to happen. But there's nothing that shocks us right now.
No.
And time will tell, A, what happens, and B, whether it's a successful move for the club. I mean, I'm just looking at his championship stats now. You know, he played 38 times last year, played 9 times over the last season. He played the season before, obviously, it was at Ipswich. He played 9 times, 20 times for us. Then it was 42, 45, 19, 43, 26, you know. So that's a lot of championship experience there. Is he replaceable? Obviously, it depends who you bring in. It's potential, yes. It's just going to be really interesting to see how all this plays out. But right now, it just seems like more and more drama, you know, coming through from the club. So moving on from the Travis situation, we're then talking contracts. He hasn't signed his. There's other people that haven't signed theirs. The ones that we're really looking at are your Dolans, your Barts, and your Vymans. Are you hearing anything there about any of these players?
So what I did hear was that before we even finished the season, that Andy Vyman was going to do his rehab at Rovers. That they were going to wait and see how his rehab went before offering him a deal. Now, obviously, in the terms of the in the detail, of the released list and the renewed list, it said that they'd offered him a deal. What kind of terms they are, I would suspect. Well, they're certainly not terms he's bitten the hand off, are they? So whether they're sort of offering a contract, but it's not as lucrative as he would like, or whether he just wants to explore the market, who knows? But I was told that they weren't offering him a contract until he kind of recovered from his injury, which makes sense. And then they have a look at where he's at. But then when you look at Danny Bart, you kind of go, well, like I said a couple of times the other week, I don't really believe in coincidences. And you got Danny Bart, you got Dolan, Travis, Britton. Hyam's not signed a new deal. They've just extended it. Hedges hasn't. They've just extended it. You start to see a pattern emerging.
Yeah, and it does have this feel of rebuild about it. I said on X today, you know, when you start a Football Manager game and you literally just go in and you don't care, everyone gets transfer listed and you're just going to sign everyone, all the staff are gone. It's got a feeling of that, like you know, everything's just being reset and rebuilt. But the difference is with Football Manager to this is Football Manager's a game, real life. That doesn't quite work, and it's very rare that it does. And we thought that the whole contract thing was going to be sorted. You know, the Broughton era, we've said the project was that we would re-sign assets, and if they didn't necessarily have a future, we wouldn't. It was all about protecting the club. Now, for some reason, it hasn't happened, and time will tell what happens. But Dolan, for example, there's a lot of value in Dolan as a player and as an asset. So that's one that's gone by the wayside. Same with Travis. The Barton Vyman one, okay, I can understand they're coming of age now, and if the manager wants to play this fast-flowing football where he wants athletes, Barton Vyman don't necessarily fit into that. But you still need to have some experienced heads. We've talked about it before. You know, you did the piece on getting promoted. I think I did a piece on average age of the club being so low and that we needed experience. We get the experience, and then suddenly we're actually starting to get some results. The one thing that happened over the last year is the one term that we used to keep saying is it's a Rovers thing to go and lose that game. It's a Rovers thing that we went and did that. I didn't have that last year. You know, in fact, we used the positive of saying, well, it used to be a Rovers thing that we'd go and lose that game, but we got something out of it. And that's got to be because of the experience brought in. Keeping the Travis at the club and not loaning him out, having the Danny Barts, having the Vymans, these kind of players that kind of gave the younger players a little bit more confidence. So the younger players have got a bit more experience. Then they're surrounded with some older players. So it is important to have your Danny Barts and your Andy Vymans. But they've got to explore. They're coming to the end of their careers. They need to explore their options. And it sounds to me like Rovers have just offered them a relatively basic contract, and they're exploring. And like you say, you've got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple as Rovers are only offering a year, someone else is potentially offering 2. You need security at the end of your career. I completely get that, and I think in isolation, those two, I kind of get it a little bit. But you go right back. Obviously, Eustace was quite heavily reliant on people he felt he could trust, and that a lot of the time was experience. But you go back to Yundal Thomas, and what was he crying out for? I mean, ironically, he wanted to sign Danny Bart. They just wouldn't give him a 2-year deal, was what was reportedly out there. But he was crying out all the time, saying they just need some help and we need experience. I worry that we are going back to not that there was anything wrong with Thomason's football, but we're going back to that style a bit, which I'm in favour of in many ways, but not if it's too far. And under Thomason, the reason it went pear-shaped in the end, partly because he threw his toys out the pram, but partly because we didn't have any experience and you were just throwing silly points away, throwing silly games away. And like, you're absolutely right, Mike, when you said there was points last season where we were talking about shutting games down and not actually starting to not feel worried. You would go 1-0 up and think, yeah, we can do that. And that is the experience that was getting us over the line. That was Danny Bart. That was Andy Weimer popping up with key goals. Again, I'm going to use the term idiotic. I think if you just throw those out, it's going to bite you on the backside.
It has a feeling that the people in charge, and I don't want to start bashing owners and stuff at the moment, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't if you talk about the owners on this channel. But it does have a feeling that there's been so many people in the background that maybe have highlighted some of the issues that we have, that they just want to get rid of them. And the best thing to do is get rid of the people that are moaning, and the ones that are a little bit older, just let them go, or don't offer them, because they're not actually a financial asset anymore. So you're only really signing them to have a year. So there's a definite feeling that they're letting players walk. They're not willing to oversell the club, and I like it to an extent. Like, I don't want, we've had the Danny Murphys and the Leon Bests that have come and had a payday. I get that, but these players have proven to actually want to play for the club and actually want the club to be better, and ultimately, like you say, they've offered something. Danny Bart, key player for us last year. Vyman, when he played, key player. Dolan, as much as I've moaned about him, the only reason I moaned about him is because I think of him so highly, because I know he can make it. Travis, I know I moaned about him, but he was great last year. So sometimes you've just got to think to yourself, well, do you know what? There's a structure there. Let's keep them signed on and then just add in 2 or 3 extra players to complement them. And then maybe in the winter, you then say to them, okay, you're not going to play for the rest of the season. If you want to head off and find another club, you can go for free, and then you upgrade again. You build slowly. If this is because of a rebuild, if this is because they're trying to protect the club and they're willing to let them walk and add extra players in, I think it is a little bit risky trying to make this many changes at once, because unless you're going to be throwing around tens of millions, every single signing we're going to make is going to be a risk to replace them.
Yeah, I'm glad you've added that bit then, because that's kind of what I was thinking is, you're almost eliminating the risk with Danny Bart. Yes, I think they will look at the risk of how many games can he play, how robust is he. Same with Vyman. I understand that, but I actually talk about key moments as well. Andy Vyman doesn't need to play every minute of every game. We've seen that with the Norwich game. There's a perfect example. The last game he's played for us. But we are looking at a data-driven model. We're looking at a very analytical model, and that's fine, and I think that's sensible to do. But unless they play week in, week out in the Championship, you never quite know until they arrive. And as we've seen with Ohashi's been a hit. Gay's been a bit up and down. But Kozia Dewberry, who should have probably been one of the more secure options because he's been in England, actually performed very poorly for my money. So I think if you're going to be taking 6, 7, 8 gambles, they're not all going to come off. Now, they might be low risk in terms of finances, but they're not all going to come off, or they're not all going to come off immediately, as we've seen with Cardboard. So to throw away people that you could almost hang your hat on in Bart and Vyman, if that's what they're doing, maybe it's all down to Bart and Vyman, but if that's what they're doing, and then potentially compound that with not sorting Dolan, not sorting Travis, not sorting Britton, not sorting Hyam, not sorting Hedges properly. I just think it's very risky when we're not a club who can afford to make big mistakes.
Exactly. In fact, the only person that has signed a contract is Felix Goddard, young goalkeeper, which obviously, to go back to what we talked about with the depth chart, we did forget about Jack Barrett being a goalkeeper at Blackburn. I completely apologise. Sorry, Jack, 23-year-old. There is obviously potential that Felix Goddard and Jack Barrett could be around the first team squad. But, there's only one contract been signed now, and there was a few on the table. I think a few fans are getting a little bit worried now because, with a club that we're quite a proud fan base. We've got a lot of history in the club. You like to think that if Blackburn offered a contract, we're one of the clubs where you'd be like, yeah, I'm signing it, especially if you've been, here for a while or had an opportunity to play for us at the latter end of your career, like your Barts and your Vymans. It is a little bit worrying that we've only had one person sign a deal, because there's a few now, isn't there, that haven't signed?
There's a number of them, and what I would say is, I think we are looking now at, yes, a rebuild, but a completely different approach than we've seen last year. And that might be something to do with it. Eustace was a big departure from what the club have been trying to do over the previous years. Maybe that's all this is. Maybe that is what we're looking at. But I think it was Ismail's, one of his last interviews of the season, he said he wanted 90% of the signings in before day one of pre-season. When I was at the last fans forum, Adam Owen talked about when you're going to play the way that we are going to play, it's absolutely vital, not just in terms of tactically, but you get them right fitness-wise because they need to be robust. And the stat, I can't quite remember what it was. It was in the 4 minutes. It was absolutely mental, Mike. It was something like, if you miss 75% of pre-season, you miss 75% of the minutes on the pitch. And so we're really hanging our hat on getting robust players that are going to adapt. We know they're going to be gambles, but actually we're also hanging our hat on getting them in through the door. Now, I know there's a few weeks. I mean, there's rumours Sahil's in India. That will tie in. He did say he was going to travel there to speak to the owners. So, and people are on holiday. People are getting married, as we've seen left, right and centre. So I understand that these things take time, but that's usually transfers, not contracts. They're usually done by now. So I am getting a little bit twitchy about it all, but I'm willing to come back to this conversation. And normally I would say at the end of the transfer window or the beginning of the season. I think actually, based on what they're saying, we need to be looking a week into pre-season. If we've not landed a number of players, then I think we've got an issue. The final thing I would say is, I would suspect when they talked about, was it about 6 players they wanted? That was if they'd re-signed Bart and Vyman at the very least. Maybe Dolan they weren't expecting to. So we could be talking of upwards of 7, 8 players now that they need to get through the door. That's a lot of work to be doing.
Exactly, and that's a lot of risks, like we said. obviously one player that looks like it's coming through the door is Dion Deneve, a Belgian left back. Now, it was funny. Scott wrote, he was on Rovers Chat with us, messaged me today, and he said, it's so funny. He said, the one position that you guys seemed happy about, and we're signing a left back. And we did have a lot of people say about that depth chart, saying, oh, well, it sounds like if it was up to you, you'd sign everyone for every position. Yeah, probably would. But anyway, left back was the one that we said we wouldn't touch. And then we linked to a left back, so it shows what we know. But actually, he did play a lot of the latter part of the season in left midfield and left wing. Going back to transfer market, they do list him as a left midfielder as well. But if you do look, he played a lot of positions there. Now, what do we know about him? He's Belgium. He's extremely fast. He's about 23. I think he's 23 years old. He's got a couple of goals, a couple of assists out of 26 appearances in the Belgian league. So it looks like it could be a bit of an exciting signing in kind of an Owen Beck mould of, like you said, you'd have Owen Beck as a left winger rather than left back. Have you seen anything to do with him other than YouTube like the rest of us?
I've become a YouTube expert in him, if I'm being honest. But I think we did say that. We also said that the centre midfield 2 were nailed on to start. And if we played 4-2-3-1, and that looks like it may or may not be right. But when I've thought about it more, because initially I was thinking, a left back, really? He does play left wing, obviously, a lot more. That brings Cardboard into question, but we've not much in terms of depth down those sides. I think the only thing I would say is we did also talk about playing 3 at the back and how Pickering could slot in as the left-hand side of the 3. We know that's the case. But if you look at the makeup of Ribeiro and Pickering, we also said that they are both quite similar, aren't they? So if you swap one out and swap one in, I don't think you're losing too much. The disadvantage with that is if we are looking to break with pace, neither of them is the sort of person. It's not a Callum Britton, is it? That's going to be getting you up the pitch really quickly. So maybe that's another thing that they're looking at. It's just a different profile of player, because that's what they talked about an awful lot. The profile of the team, they need to change. They need pace. They need people who are robust. So to be fair, we don't have that profile of left back, but I can't see it being the position that they've gone, oh my God, if we start the season without signing a left back, we are in trouble. However, I do think it's probably one that they've identified for a little bit for left wing, but as a different profile. It's probably just one of the easier deals that they're going to do, because we were linked with the centre half that seems to have gone very quiet. So, Yeah,
I think you're right. I think the trouble is this is all speculative at this part of the season. We're here trying to create content and trying to be facts, and we just can't. Everything's always going to be just a couple of blokes talking and trying to speculate, and that's exactly what we're doing right now. And I think you're right. I think if we are going 3 at the back, I think Pickering could go there. You rightly pointed out in the past how well he played on that left centre back position, and when it was the 3. I think he's most likely being signed to be an attacking left-sided player, not just a left back. So that could be left wing back, left midfield, left wing. There's no way they've signed him to be just a normal left back, because we had those normal left backs there. But it looks exciting. It's someone that we can look on YouTube, and we're looking at local media, the local media, doing their reports on him. But apparently that's done. But I've heard no other solid rumours. And it's something you've said in the past. The club like to keep their cards close to their chest, because we've been gazumped a few times. And because we are trying to get good deals aren't done by making them public and everyone knowing your business, because as soon as it goes public, then other people come in and agents are getting involved, and suddenly the finances are going up and up and up. So we are, a lot of the deals that we're going to do are going to be lightning fast, quiet, and then suddenly bang, it gets done. But there are no other rumours right now, are there?
No, I think there's a centre half that was rumoured to be close, wasn't he? And then did he have a 2 million relegation clause? But now Sunderland are reportedly interested, which would tie in because it was similar to the left winger, whereby he's close to signing, and then all of a sudden he's not. So hopefully the left winger does get done. I love your optimism that we are going to get more players just left field. In they come. Job done. Yep, here comes, maybe they'll do it with a kit launch. Here's our new 6 signings. Great. Lovely.
I hope so. I mean, if you remember, we did it last time where we had 3 players come in suddenly out of nowhere. Yep. We're all frantically Googling. We're trying to create content to explain to people what was going on with them. And then it went dead for a bit. And then suddenly, bang, we signed 3 more. It's trying our best to search social media, talk to people that we know, listen to the local media as well, and find all these links. And you're seeing all these little names here or there, but nothing's sticking. So I do think it is going to be, like you say, just bang, here's 3 players. And hopefully they're wearing the nice new kits. It is concerning. I think ideally I'd like to see all the contracts sorted first. And I'd like to see them sorted quickly, because then they can really see where the holes are. And that's what's worrying me, because say Travis does go, that's a pretty big hole now they have to fill. So if you haven't got much money to spend, or your budget is, even if your budget was 10 million, that's not that much money to replace a Travis, to plug the holes on the wing, to get your centre half that you need, that's going to be adding to the quality. So I want to see the contract sorted as soon as possible, so then they can really have a good look at the transfer market and see where their budgets are and how much they can spend on each player.
Yeah, because we are, aren't we? We're not shopping. Certainly not shopping at Harrods, not shopping at M&S. I think we're on Aldi's whoopsie aisle at the minute, but I'm just worried that we're going to be on Aldi's middle aisle and we could be getting anything here. But we'll wait and see, Mike. YouTube is our friend, and you can always trust it. As I remember with Carlos Villanueva, you can never deny what you see on YouTube.
No, was it Formica as well? Everyone, he was meant to be the next Riquelme, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, look at these 2." But yeah, Villanueva, his YouTube is still phenomenal. Still phenomenal.
It is.
What a player he was on YouTube.
Yeah, not quite as good in the flesh, but yeah.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure he adjusted to our way of playing. So, are we thinking we're going to see some movement over the next couple of weeks, or can you see there being a delay in getting these signings in?
It will ultimately come down to whether they're prepared to wait for their number 1, number 2 target. But the fact that one of the things they're placing quite a bit of emphasis on is getting them through the door and getting them in for pre-season, I think we might see some movement quite quickly. I think they might not be prepared to wait around as much as we maybe previously have. I think one of the requirements is getting them through the door.
And do we know when Sir Hale's meant to be getting this budget sorted?
Well, I think he's there this week. So, should be back in a...
Hopefully we'll have an idea.
Sure.
It is crazy that we're in June and we're still trying to figure out budgets. You would have liked to have thought that they'd have this ready to go. If we don't get promoted, this is how much you've got. If we do get promoted, this is how much you're going to have. That's normally what happens, and it's not been done this time for various reasons. So I do feel sorry for the recruitment team a little bit here.
I raised that exact point at the fans forum. I said, surely it's not that. Yes, you might change in position, so it will change slightly, but surely you can roughly work out, I don't know. So let's say we could finish between 7th and 10th. We'll work on 10th. and anything else is a bonus. You should know what your budgets can be. And surely when we are looking at trying to do things really quickly to get people through the door, why do you have to wait till the season finishes? Just get them to sign off 2 or 3 draft budgets would be my... Maybe I'm being wrong. I mean, because obviously, Mike, apparently the football, commercial and finance departments are performing to a high standard. So I'm sure they are doing everything right.
Well, I hope so. And hopefully they're going to have a nice new CEO in place, one that, does have high work ethic but a low ego. What did you think about that bit at the end of the job advert that's apparently for us?
Well, it could be for us, couldn't it? We're supporting a significant football club in the Northwest. I think what it would fit with it being us, because you do need a CEO. We don't have a chairman, obviously. You do need a CEO who just practical elements. So when you are a football club, obviously it's a big organisation. When you are on a match day, if there is an emergency, the CEO must make certain decisions and quickly, safety-wise, safeguarding elements of the football club. The CEO is a really important role. What it would appear, if that is our advert, is that the football, commercial and finance departments are performing high. So that would be Rudy and Adam Owen. That would be Yasser. And then that would, you imagine, be Sahel and the directors. So they're basically saying, you don't need to worry yourself with that. Role requires a calm and capable leader. It should be a comma there, but we'll not nitpick. To take ownership of stadium operations. That would tie in. So basically, on the day, I need you to be the one who makes those decisions. You liaise with HR, IT, all those really exciting things. Sorry if you work in HR, I apologise. Don't come for me. And associated support functions with day-to-day internal management. So basically, somebody who knows what they're doing day-to-day at a football club. You just tick them boxes. But it does talk here, really, doesn't it, around... Let's be honest, what they're basically asking for is somebody who knows what they're doing to tick the boxes but don't rock the boat. That would fit with Blackburn Rovers, I would suggest, a little bit.
Well, that's going into what they're doing with all these players and player liaisons leaving and stuff, isn't it? Seems like they're trying to get a few
the advert
changes going.
Yeah, the advert for the player liaison and receptionist, it's been divided up a bit, like the director of football role got divided up. Maybe we need 2 people to do that job more efficiently. Who knows? Something is changing at the football club, isn't it? Significantly over the last 12 months, and it continues to do so. Time will tell whether it's for the better. I'm not a football expert. It's not my decisions to be making. But, do you want football experts in charge of the football element? Yeah. Adam Owen's experience is extensive. Rudy's obviously done certain elements of that as well. So if they're getting people who are highly qualified for the role, absolutely fine. I think low ego, high work ethic suggests somebody who's willing to, maybe not the highest paid, and they're willing to get a chance and they'll work really, really hard. But I don't know.
So that bit at the end triggered me.
Yeah,
I thought putting that into a job post like that, I don't know why, it just really triggered me. It's like, if low ego, high work ethic, if you have to put that, I found it crazy. I mean, CEO, you would have thought they're automatically going to have a high work ethic because that's what you should have to have even got to that level. But low ego, that was... I just didn't like that being in there. If that is for us, I was really triggered by that one.
Yeah, I was as well. Yeah.
Right, so let's move on to some fun stuff. So we can't really talk about much else at the moment because we don't have a head of a lot. So one thing we want to talk about is we've been putting some posts out there to do with our some absolute banger kits and what players they remind you of. And you got us talking about what's your favourite home and away kit. Now you're wearing an absolute stunner there. It's a bit of a rare one. For those listening, which one are you wearing?
I've got the HSA, Healthwise It Pays, don't you know? UEFA Cup shirt from, do you know what? I think it was 2003. I mean, fancy bringing out a UEFA Cup shirt. Obviously, we're going to need one of them. But yeah, it's Kappa special as well. Can't go wrong with Kappa. Lovely stuff. Not
Was
a big
it the
fan of
one
the
that had
badge
to
being
have the
central.
black? No, obviously that's the bit I wasn't a fan of.
Yeah.
And but I did like it. But is this the one that had the white square on the back? Because
this version doesn't, but the players did, yeah.
Yeah, because you couldn't have the UEFA rules meant you couldn't have the number on two different colours or something stupid. Absolute banger that was. So we did put it out on X. And we had some absolute beauties on there. So Tim Dio, I got my first Rovers shirt in 1992 at Christmas, the home and away. But looking back, 10-year-olds probably shouldn't be wearing a shirt with a lager company on the front. And it was the black and red classic McEwens Lager Asics shirt. Oh. Absolute beauty. Luke Core, the 0708 was always my favourite away shirt. Sarah Perspex, brilliant shirt. The first sponsor I remember. Close second was the Cause one. I do remember the Cause one. That was
it was a one-off.
That was a one-off.
I think it was it Nottingham Forest, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was when
Forest.
Mark Crossley threw one in.
Yeah. I don't remember the game, but I do.
Yeah, I think it was McEwens Lager at the brewery that they were from, wasn't it? Trying to get cores over to England, but yes.
But a lot of people were picking the Kappa kits, so it looks like the Kappa kits were popular. So J07 said, love the look of the 0203 sponsor Kappa. It's the one with the AMD processors and the side panels. It was navy blue side panels, and he actually did put, although it was super uncomfy, I seem to remember that a lot of the Kappa ones were comfy, but the stitching down did rub you a little bit, from my sensitive little skin. Bless me. But the ones that were my favourite, the away shirt, but Lloyd Patrick Jepson's put the Worthington Cup final one, time. I wasn't a fan of the collar, but the away shirt, the navy blue one, white piping down. And I had Grabby on the back of mine, and it was signed. I'll have to get that one down from the loft. But that one was an absolute beauty for me. What are some of your favourites?
So the first one I ever remember seeing us in was the 1991 season. It was a really, really pale blue with a red collar. I always remember Garner scoring against Liverpool at the back post, and there's a picture of him with his hand up. But I think one of my favourites was the 91-92, the promotion home kit. That was when I really, really remember watching Rovers for the first time. I remember watching us in the playoffs against Derby, 4-2. Newell scored a screamer. Dalglish was there. We were signing people all the time. Loved it. But the time one holds special memories as well, probably because we beat the Dingles 5-0. We got promoted. I did like that one. I like the red and black. I think red and black's Rovers is colours. But I mean, whilst I think that this blue is probably royal blue, is probably Rovers blue, and I believe that Jack Walker, when he became properly involved in sort of 92, actually said that's Rovers blue, and I want the kits to be that shade from now on. And if you actually look back at the history from about 93, 94, certainly, the blue doesn't really change much. Whereas I grew up with us having a really light blue and then slightly darker. And then you get to a point where we've messed around with that, haven't we? With the Zebra Claims one, the 10-bet.
Well, 2013, we went back to reversing the blue and white halves back to the original way, didn't we? Because looking at the history, in 1904, we swapped it. So it used to be that the blue was on the opposite side, so it would have been on your right side if you was wearing it. Then it changed to left side in 04. Then it went back. Then it went back to left. Then back to right. Then back to left. And it seemed to change. And then it suddenly just started being on the left-hand side. And then that was it until, was it 2013? Yeah, 2013. Nike put it back on the right-hand side. And then we had two years of it on the right hand side, and then went back to the left, and then we went back to the right again in 2018, and it's flipped around. Where would you have that blue half? Would it be on your left or on your right?
No, it would be on the left. I think where the badge is, that just feels Rovers to have the badge on the blue side. But one of the big things for me is that they should be on opposite sides of the back. I think that should be a given as well. So it's actually a quartered shirt technically then. What about you? Are you a white behind the badge or a blue?
Yeah, I like the blue on the left. That's just the era I grew up in. I suppose.
I think that's all it is.
I think a few older guys that they were very much like. Actually, I like the history of it being on that right hand side, but I do think it should be flipped. I think if you're looking at the shirt, it needs to be on if you're wearing it on the right hand side, but looking at it on the left, and the same if you're looking at it from the back. When it came to my favourite shirts, the Nike one with the collar, I'm just trying to find on the list. I think there was a Nike one with a collar, and we released it without a sponsor to start with. And it was an absolute beauty. And that was my favourite. It could have been 2015, the 2015 one. And was it the Daffabet sponsor? But the sponsor didn't come in for ages. So you could, if you bought it early, you didn't have a sponsor.
Well, one of the first ones when we got relegated, we had no sponsor for a bit, and then we got ProBiz late on. But then I think you might be meaning the one that got RFS. So I think that was 2013-14. I always picture Jordan Rhodes in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it now because, yes, it was that Jordan Rhodes era. 2015, I think it was. The 2015, it was Daffabet. Yeah, okay. The 2015 one, we didn't have a sponsor. So if you got in early and then they said, like, buy them now, but we'll put the sponsors on after, and no one went back to get the sponsors.
No.
So then you have this then timeless shirt with a nice collar, because I like a collar. I like a proper collar. It's one that I wear to games, and it's that's my favourite one because it feels very, very timeless. What about the away shirts? Which ones are for you?
You see, I'm very red and black. I think if you're picking Rovers colours, it's obviously blue and white. Red and black for them away. I get they have to mix it up. Yellow, probably a third one. But I'm red and black stripes. I just think it can't be beaten. I'd like to see us go back to that at some point. Probably if I was going to nail my colours to the mast, I would probably say the red and black ones of the time era. I think one was
promotion 2001.
Yeah, and then the 92-93 was similar, wasn't it? I think I would also like to give a special mention for the 95-96, although we performed horrifically. The red with the Premier League badge on was pretty special. Yeah.
See, I don't know. I'm all over the place because I love. Oh, that is a mug. That is. There we go. He's got his kits on his mug there for people listening at home. That's so nice. There we go. We need to get a sponsor with that one.
Quick, cover them up.
Exactly. I agree. I think away should be red and black, but I am quite partial to the yellow Perspex ones in the 80s. I thought there's some nice, sexy ones there, but I do love a navy blue shirt. There was a horrendous one in 2012, 2013 that looked like a training top. But
that was awful. Danny Murphy ruined it as well.
Yeah, that was Leon Best and Danny Murphy advertising it, and they looked like they looked like they was in a lost PE kit, and like for a high school, and I just didn't like it. It was the only navy blue one I didn't like.
Do you know? Same, I didn't buy it, and I love navy blue as well, Mike. Very, very similar.
Yeah.
That one, that's the one though, isn't it? With a bit of blue and white on it.
Yeah, that's my favourite. So the 2001, 2002, that was my favourite one. I've got one in the loft. I might bring it down and start wearing it again because that was a beauty. Let's talk brands. Now, I put out saying that Lonsdale and Allsport made some of the worst kits that we had. Now, not necessarily the design, but the quality was pretty poor. What's your thoughts on the brandings? Which were your highs and lows in the brandings?
Yeah, in terms of, I know what you mean in terms of quality. So when I've got my kits scattered around and some of them are in bags and things like that, when you pull them back out, the Lonsdale ones look like they've been eaten by a dog. Whereas the Asics ones, I must have wore that day in, day out as a kid, covered it in mud. They lasted for 2 years is the other point. So they had 2 years use and they still, I mean, they look pretty battered, but they've lasted a lot longer. I thought the Kappa ones were my favourite in terms of quality, fit. And then I take Umbro in 2 sections. I think Umbro when we were in the Premier League was great when it felt like we were just like the ones you're describing where we seemed to get the team wear ones that they've just got from the shop. They felt poor, didn't they? But I think it's probably my age in terms of the peak era, Asics. Asics and McEwens Lager.
Yeah, so looking back on the Asics ones, you're going to have that nostalgia bias as well. The fact that we were growing up in that era, you wore the shirts to death. I forgot to mention the yellow one with the black down. That was the 93, 94. I always wanted that and I never got one. That was always one of my favourites. Asics had some pretty good designs for us. I was a Nike fan of the home shirts. Away shirts, not too much, because it was very much like, just go into Pro Direct, go down the Sunday League kits, and eventually you'll get to a Rovers shirt and stick a badge on it, and that's it. But I like the Nike home shirts. Away shirts, I tell you what, Macron are doing pretty well for themselves. I'm pretty chuffed with the Macron stuff.
The designs are great. It's just the fact, I've not put any weight on since I was about 10. But all of a sudden, I can't fit in any shirts that I'm starting to get. Well, I'll just have to get one a bit bigger. They're bang out of order, Macron. That they need to just upsize them, and then I'll be in there. Yeah, I can get on board with them. But I have a bit of a squeamish look when I'm picking a large up, and I'm a bit like, oh, really? Come on, just do us a favour, make us feel a bit better.
Well, when I did that charity game, and I had this green Goldie top on, it's a bit embarrassing, but I'll tell the story because I don't care. Anyway, I'd been injured. I had a pretty bad ankle injury, and when I'm injured, I'm not happy, so I eat. I ate a lot. And I ate even more. And it got to a point, and because I'd won the bid and it said it's going to be an XL shirt. So I was like, I'll be fine. But then I didn't read the small print that it says player issue XL. Oh, damn. I went to the club shop to try one on. No, this thing was going to be painted on. So I was like, I can't do that. So I contacted the club and I said, look, I can't do it. And I was like, well, these are the community ones. Like, you get to keep it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think I'm going to be able to play in it. So they said, well, if you can find a bigger one and get it sent to us, we'll do the printing for you. So I did it, and it was still so tight on me. And it actually made me go on a diet because I was just like, I can't do that again. But I was just like, oh my God, I was like in double to triple XL on those goalkeeper shirts, trying my best to squeeze in. And I was like, oh no. So that was my embarrassing moment when it came to the Macron sizing. But yeah, I think for me now, I've been quite pleased with what Macron have offered us since they've come in, and I'm really excited to see what happens next year. Is there any rumours on the dates now of what's going on?
Yeah, they're pretty set in stone. I think Macron and the club are working well on that. I think the designs that Macron are doing are very bespoke to the club, so I love that. I like the little details. You might get a rose here. You might get the Premier League crown. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to use the full trophy print. But yeah, they've been pretty consistent. So I would expect they'll be very, the training kit's already in the shop. Well, we know that the training kit arrives with the first batch of kits. I think we know that, don't we? Well, we do now. So the kits will be there. They're pretty consistent in the dates. If you look out there, they will be coming out before holidays. I think all 3 kits probably will come out before most people go on holiday. But I would suspect that we'll probably have a centenary shirt. I think that will be a 4th kit to buy, which, so you're talking upwards of 200 quid there, aren't you? But I thought the training gear was good. I don't really buy the training gear because it's usually very expensive for what it is. But that one that looks a bit of a 90s retro look, I think I might have to have a little snaffle of that. It's my birthday coming up, so I might have to put that on my birthday wish list, I think.
Well, that's the thing. People have been moaning about the ads that we've got on here, but they do pay for Mark to get a nice training kit, don't they?
Wow. Well, if only they did pay that much, Mike. Yes. Yes.
Well, I did like them. I didn't like last year's training kits. It felt very Charlie Brown out of Snoopy, one of them, and I wasn't a massive fan of it.
Just on that, Mike, tried it on. Thought, just have a little look at it. Not really what I wanted when macaron kits are very tight anyway. For something to be pointing down and pointing in the bit that's sticking out. And I felt a bit sorry for John Eustace. He went to Derby and he looked like he lost 3 stone just because he had a top that fitted. Yeah, not a great.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of them. I think that's where Macron. If Macron are going to do it wrong, I don't mind them doing it wrong with the training kit. But I feel like they're doing it right with the kits. I think it's going to be really nice if there's a special edition shirt that people can go and collect. I got last year's shirts. I've got them hung up next to me, and they were absolute beauties, proper collector's items. And I hope that we do it right this time.
I think
because it's the one thing that fans want is a nice collectible shirt.
Yeah, and people have talked about Adidas Special, haven't they, getting involved? And, Special's a massive connection with Blackburn. Obviously, Gary Aston is one of the designers. He goes to Rovers home and away. All you see in the Blackburn End is people wearing Special trainers, Special tops. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a weakness of mine as well. So I would love that. But in terms of kit designs, other than them, Macron have just... They do ask the fans. The lead time's mental. So we've designed, we've not designed the kit, but our input into designs goes about 18 months before the kit's done. But I think if you're looking at special kits now, there's obviously you go right back on our kit history. I'll just try and show my phone there. So you've got the white one. Yeah, I'd understand them doing that. Navy blue one. Ooh, that'd be nice. Navy blue and white. So hopefully we get something like that. I suspect we will. Yeah.
No, it would be really interesting to see what we're gonna get. I do think it could be something like the Kappa one that they did. Again, that's a shirt I've been looking for. I never got hold of. I could see it being a proper retro one as a special edition. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the actual playable, the season shirt's going to look like, because I think there's got to be an element of history in that one as well. It can't just be one special edition. The actual, playing one that it's got to have some functionality to it. It can't be like an old button cotton shirt or anything. It's going to be. I'm hoping there's a bit of history in it, but that it's got a modern twist.
Yeah, I think they've done a cracking job of designs recently, particularly when they've worked with Macron. So I have full faith in the commercial department.
Me too. Well, everyone put their comments down below about their favourite kits. Which ones stand out? Which brands did you like? Which ones didn't you like? What do you want the new kits to look like? Are you going to go and get one? Is it something that you collect? What's your favourite shirt in your collection? All these things, put it down below. Also, things we've spoken about. What's your thoughts on Travis? Do you think he's going to walk? Do you think he's going to sign a new deal? What do you think the future is for some of the ones that haven't signed their contracts? All the good stuff down below. Make sure you start some conversations, because we do get involved with that. But Mark, thanks for joining me and blessing us with that beautiful shirt.
No worries. I'll try and get a few more out. I might just need to. I'll try and breathe in when I put them on. See if I can get in them. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. We'll make that a challenge across the summer for us to wear a different shirt on each pod, and we'll see what happens. And I'll see if I can squeeze into some. If I might not be able to talk, but I might be breathing in too much though.
Yeah, well, that was what I was thinking. I might be in it, but it'll be a silent pod. I mean, probably quite grateful people would be of that. So, yeah, we'll see.
Nice one. Well, cheers for joining me, and thanks everyone for listening. Like Mark said earlier, do all the good stuff of subscribing, sharing the pods, making sure you tell all your friends and family about us, because we are trying to expand, and we'll keep making the content if you keep listening. So until next week, have a good one and enjoy yourself.